Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, we're in Toronto, Canada. You might recognize the CN tower back there, and then this is Virginia Block, and you run a shop here called Amigo EV.
I do.
That's awesome. We were just there. We rode to this beautiful waterfront area. This is NCM. This is the first time I'm looking at this, and we're looking at the Aspen. I actually grew up in Colorado, and there's a place called Aspen. It's a beautiful mountainy area, so we were out trying to find something that resembled that, right? And there's all these cool, there's like a statue over there, and you know, trees and off-road, because that's what this bike is really designed for. It's a fat tire bike. These are 26 by 4 inch, so fat tires. You're probably getting used to seeing these. They become really popular in the e-bike scene. I like them because they create a lot of stability. They even give you some comfort if you lower the pressure a little bit. And then that extra contact patch, it means you can drive through like grass or maybe even softer stuff like mulch or loam, sand, snow, and it does snow around here, right, Virginia? Occasionally.
We are in May, and we did just lose snow not that long ago.
I know. I was like, it would be so cool if we could take this like snow riding, but I've done it in the past. It actually works out.
You can actually ride these up ski hills.
That's amazing. I mean, do you have to do anything with the tires, or are they
lower pressure? Just
the lower pressure, right? All the way down to 5. These are 5 to 30 psi. In my experience, you really want to get them low if you're actually climbing. But I like the way they've set this up, because look at these rims. They're punched out. They've got oval punch outs, which reduces the weight significantly. And this has a rigid fork rather than a suspension fork. So it's very responsive when you ride. Maybe not quite as comfortable all the time because you don't have suspension. So I actually lowered my tire pressure just for this ride, even on the sidewalks and stuff. And it's feeling very good. You know, you have a shop and you set these up for people, so I think we've talked about suspension seat posts before. Is that pretty popular on this model?
Yeah, we just started selling this model, but yeah, a lot of people do get suspension seat posts. We have the Kinetic, 3 different brands to choose from. Sweet.
You know, that's one way that you can set this up, but the tire pressure is just, it's a great option, and something that I'm pointing out because this is the first time I'm test riding this bike, I'm doing the review thing, and I've noticed that the reach is set up pretty aggressively on this bike. So if you look at the stem, it's like 110 millimeters long. They've done several, it's like a 15 millimeter, 210s, and a 5 millimeter spacer. So at least it's up high, and you're doing pretty well with this. How tall are you, Virginia?
5'5".
5'5". I'm just gonna step back. Not bad, right? And
I might have longer legs, but I'm 5'5".
She's doing a great job. So I'm gonna step back over here to this bike and show you that the top tube, they've sloped it down. They're really going for that lower standover height. I think it was like 28, 29 inches right there. And then I brought the saddle all the way down and measured like a 33 millimeter or inch minimum standover height on this. It only comes in one size. The frame size is about 18.5 inches, and I love the reinforcement here. See how it's like a wishbone down here instead of a single tube to accommodate that wider bottom bracket. And they've done that so that the chain lines up. We've actually got triple chain ring and then 8 speeds in the rear. This is 170 millimeter hub spacing, 135 up front. Fat bike, okay? So everything's a little bit wider. That's why they did the wider bottom bracket, and they've reinforced the frame. You can even see there's kind of this flared tube on the top here. It's feeling really good. It's an e-bike specific frame. You can see how the battery's semi-integrated, and then they've externalized the controller right there. This is an 18 amp controller, pure sine wave. It means it's going to deliver a little bit more juice and give you that zippy feel. And as this heats up, it's not going to interfere with the battery. It might make replacement battery packs a little bit more affordable. This thing has a tapered head tube. It's got quick release in the front, not in the rear. But I did notice that, you know, the power cable coming to the motor is actually on the left, and a lot of times I see it on the right, which really clutters the drive side. We've already got the derailleur cable, and we've got that nice derailleur guard. That's really great if the bike tips over, which could happen here more frequently because there's no kickstand, and there are no kickstand provisions at the center or the rear. And that's something you see a lot in traditional mountain bikes. So I'm picking this apart a little bit and trying to think through it with you. One benefit of having limited kickstand, no bottle cage bosses, no rack bosses, although it does have fender bosses, is that this frame is fairly light. 59.3 pounds. Weighed it like several times with Virginia's help over there. Good job. We're pumping some iron.
Court's got some muscle, a bit more than I do.
Rock on. It was a good team effort. So, you know, where I'm coming from here is that this thing it's pretty powerful. It's responsive. It's pretty sporty, though, with that aggressive stem. I would probably get one that's a little bit shorter for me even, and one that's a little bit more angled up. You said you have some of those adjustable ones.
Oh yeah, that's really easy to adjust, and I would do that for myself too. I can handle it, but I think over a longer ride, I'd prefer it a bit more upright.
Yeah, a lot of times if that really far reach is like if you're a more aggressive rider and maybe you're climbing a little bit, so it kind of keeps your body weight forward, keeps the front wheel down. In this case, to me, it's just they chose poorly on that part, frankly. I like all of the other things that I'm seeing here, although I'm noticing that there's missing bottle cage bosses, but there wouldn't have been room right there. You know, maybe for like a toolkit or a folding lock or something. And I'm picking this apart pretty aggressively because the price is so good. This thing is amazing. It's $21.99 US, 16.
Canadian.
That's Canadian. Okay, $16.99 US, $21.99. I'm getting confused, right? I'm still like trying to pick all those things apart. That leaves you plenty of money to swap out the stem or to get some like adapters for bottles or things like that. You know, and to me, that's a big consideration. I mean, this is a value bike, but the hardware is very proven. I've seen this display before. It's DOS Kit L7, pretty nice display, fairly reachable. And you know, if we come back to this motor, this is a 500 watt nominal, 80 Newton meter, fat bike specific motor, and this thing has a throttle. So, you know, we were talking about like the beach or the snow. When you've got a big fat bike, getting started on a hill can be kind of difficult. And the throttle helps so much.
I love having the throttle if you're on a steeper hill to get going.
Right? Yeah, and the way they've set this throttle up, it's very reachable. Sometimes throttles don't really fit because you've got trigger shifters. On this one, we have 2 sets. This is a 24-speed bike. They've kind of packed it in, and in some ways for me, like 24 speeds is almost like overkill. You know, I've got my little like pant strap on so I don't get snagged, right?
Stromer one.
It's a Stromer. Yeah, we were at the shop. I was like, "You got a rubber band?" And they were like, "We'll do you one better." Give me a Stromer. You know, awesome. It's one of the brands that they carry at Amigo, and then. In a way, you've got like a derailleur, like it's a chain guide and a derailleur, front derailleur. So there's more that might need tuning up. Over time, there's cable stretch and stuff. These are mechanical disc brakes too. And this is 180 millimeter up front. That's where a lot of the stopping power happens. Your weight shifts forward. 160 in the rear. So, you know, if I could do anything, it'd be like 180 on both. Hydraulic disc brakes and, you know, rack bosses would be nice. But frankly, it's kind of hard to find fat bike specific rear racks. So I see this as just a really good value, very lightweight option that can be dialed in with comfort with the suspension seat post. But it's actually doing pretty well on this ride. I mean, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great.
Feeling good?
I want to go up steeper hills and go more off-road.
You're like zipping down the path earlier, then, you know, doing some off-roading here, and just such a beautiful night. We were like, we better start filming because it's getting dark soon. Not too bad. We got a little bit more time. Yeah, we're gonna. Thank you. This is gonna be an awesome ride. I'm gonna hit the specs while you daydream about where we're gonna go next. This is a 30.9 millimeter seat post, just in case you're looking at seat post suspension. And the cool thing is 27.2 is like the more standard size. So you could get like a shim, a little spacer. So this is very adaptable. I like having a thicker, like wider seat post because it does give you options. Maybe a seat post dropper, things like that. There's a lot you can do with that. And then, you know, coming back to the drivetrain and everything, they do have a sticker slap guard. I like to see that. They do have these really wide, sturdy, Welgo aluminum alloy platform pedals. Got the reflectors and stuff built on. 13 gauge spokes, 36 hole rims. We already talked about how they're punched out. That's nice. And then they've got that black tire liner. And so I think that gives it a little bit more cushion in addition to having like the weight reduction that we talked about before. You don't have quick release in the rear. You've got this keyed, like I think it's 11 or 12 millimeter axle that kind of pushes against the frame. It's aluminum alloy frame, but then they've got that little, I think, steel spacer right in there, and then the motor cable I mentioned earlier. So I'm calling this out again because this is a bit of point of vulnerability. A lot of times when you lay a bike down, you want to lay it down on the non-drive side, which is the left side. That's this side, and that's where the motor cable is. You'll notice that it comes directly down, but you still want to be careful with this. If this gets snagged or broken, that can kind of wreck your bike. You know, the motor's not going to be getting power. So keep that in mind. Be delicate with this side of the bike and try not to bend those disc brake rotors, because if you do, you're going to hear like squeaking, like when you're riding. That's something to keep an eye on too. A lot of times it'll balance on the pedal when you lay it on its side. And from here you can also see that little plastic ring. That is, I believe it has 12 magnets, but it's a sealed cadence sensor. So it's pretty responsive. It's not a torque sensor or a multi-sensor, but like I said before, it's kind of proven technology. It's sealed, so it's a little bit tougher. Same thing with this casing. This appears to be aluminum alloy, so even though it's directly in the path of like maybe some mud or whatever, it seems like it's doing pretty well. I've seen these same controllers, and in fact, this same battery on some of the Amigo bikes. So there's a bit of a backstory here to talk about, Virginia, and that is NCM, which apparently stands for like nickel, manganese, cobalt, manganese, nickel, cobalt, manganese. I keep getting it backwards.
Chemistry of the battery.
It's the chemistry of the battery. And like, look at their logo. There's kind of this like chemistry iconography going on. The guy who is behind this company and this brand, his name is Leon, right?
Yeah, Leon Deng.
Just tell me the story. You've worked with him, right?
Yeah, so I met Leon at Interbike probably 6 years ago and ran into him at the Shanghai Bicycle Show. He's like, come to my factory. I was like, oh, I'm visiting quite a few others. Went, and I was like, canceled everything else. I'm like, I want to work with you. He felt the same, and yeah, I'm helping him build his brand here in North America, and yeah, he's helped me a lot building my Amigo bikes, and yeah, he's similar in age to you and I, Court, and
that's really amazing.
It's wonders what he's accomplished and what he's done for the industry.
And it's great that you have that background and that experience working with really his hardware that's being manufactured, it sounds like, in France, Vietnam, and in Suzhou, China.
In Suzhou, China, yes.
That's amazing. So yeah, he's really picking the best parts.
Factories in all three of those countries. Like, he's done it all from scratch.
Yeah.
Just built it up, similar to me. I haven't gone to his scale, but working with him too.
Well, you're building a great brand, but you're interfacing directly with the customer. So that's why this is a special review, is because he actually manufactures your Amigo branded e-bikes, which we've reviewed.
Yes.
Right? Okay. And have they held up all right and like good quality, or?
Yeah. They well, we've been selling them now for 2 years, and we sell all sorts of different brands of electric bikes, and our Amigos have proven to be the most reliable, and that's really like the potted controller, great battery, all the connections, really good waterproof. Like, Leon really looks at all of the details. All of the parts components are all Taiwanese or international. He does build our bikes in China, but he is in a tax-free zone, or tax-free area, so you can bring in all of the parts and components and not pay extra duty on them. So it really keeps the price down, and that's what we're really after, is building that electric bike movement and making it more affordable. And
absolutely,
this is a great example.
Well, well said. One of your personal projects, it seems like, is this empowering delivery drivers. Like, that is that a big customer base for you? People who like ride bikes to deliver food in the city, and it's like, hey, with an e-bike you can go further, and if it snows, you can go even further. You can go, period.
Well, and that's the thing too, is they're busiest when people don't want to go out and pick up their own food.
Yeah,
so when it's snowy, when it's rainy, when it's the worst conditions, that's when they're getting paid the most, and that's when there's the most demand.
Yeah.
So a bike like this really gives you that flexibility. But yeah, what I love working with them is they're out riding the bike 7 days, 5 days a week in all the worst conditions. So we really get to see the wear and tear on them, and it makes it really proven, and this is a great bike for that. And the other thing I love is they're always out, and you're seeing them all the time. So you see, like, if you're getting delivery and you see one of these bikes, it's like, wow, like, what is that? Tell me more.
Exposing it to more people.
Yeah, and that's my whole strategy.
Good for you. This is exciting. It's really neat to get your enthusiasm. It's infectious. Thank you. Ergonomic grips, locking, love that. We've got an integrated bell, and these are the Tektro mechanical brakes that have the rubberized edge, which feels really nice. So between the ergo grips and those levers are good. They are mechanical, so in some ways, some companies like to market it like, hey, it's easier to adjust yourself. I still like hydraulic a little bit better, but it is true. With your own tools, you can tighten that over time, and when there's a little bit of cable stretch. We do have a motor inhibitor. It's only on the left brake, so I would love it if it was on both. especially since this is throttle, and you've got a fairly powerful, capable motor here, and the cadence sensor is pretty responsive. The throttle is the most responsive, and it does operate at 0 level of assist, which I really appreciate. And we'll get into the display in a minute here, but we've got the gears. You can see what gear you're in, trigger shifters, which I really like, pretty easy to interact with. And then just, doing that walk around. Here's that cable again. There is a quick disconnect point, so if you need to take the wheel off for any reason, to true the wheel or maybe replace the tire. These are CST tires, and we talked about how they're rated 5 to 30 PSI, and they're 26 by 4 inch. I didn't see like a puncture protection rating, and they don't have reflective sidewalls. This is pretty standard. That's what I see on a lot of, some of the value priced fat bikes. They're using tires like this, and they've got good traction, which is nice. From down here, you can see that some of those cables are internally routed, but some of them aren't. Right? And so if you have a bike rack where you're hanging it off the back of your car, that could be a challenge. If you have a tray style bike rack, that's going to be best. You're not going to have to lift it up as high. You're not going to interfere with those cables, but you probably want to reduce the weight as much as possible. So this is, I think it's a 9.3 pound battery. I took it off and weighed it, and that's one good way to, take that off before you have to lift the bike. I love that it's got a USB port built right in, so you can maybe charge or maintain portable electronics while you're riding, get like a right angle USB adapter, or if you're camping or something, you can take the battery off and use it as like a portable power bank.
Huge power pack.
Right, yeah. One of the trade-offs though is that in order to charge iOS devices, you need like a full amp of output. That's only 500 milliamps. So that's one thing that, again, it'd be nice if some of these put out a little bit more juice. I'm gonna take the battery off for you guys real quick, if I can. There we go, there it is. So it's got this like little handle thing built in. Makes it easier to lift up the battery like this. You can see it's 48 volts, 13 amp hours, so like 625 watt hours, pretty good capacity. It's got that little charge level indicator built right in. This is a battery style that I've seen before. Seems to work pretty well, and being a little bit more hidden like this. Try to sit this in. It's always interesting doing this one-handed. She's just, there it is. Look, I got it, right? I'm getting laughed at over there, you guys, but it's good. We made it. Take the keys out. You don't have to leave those when you're riding, and you also don't have to bend down too far to unlock it. It's not down there. However, the charging port is down there. So if you're charging, it's right by the crank arms and the pedals, and you don't want to bend that or, snag it. But there's a little bit more space here because it's a fat bike, and it has that wider bottom bracket we talked about earlier. This is what the charger looks like. Very standard 2 amp charger, not super fast, but fairly lightweight, 1.5 pounds. You get a little toolkit, a little instruction manual. I think that's about it. I think that's my standard overview, looking at doing all the considerations. You feel like I missed anything, Virginia, or should we go for a ride?
Yeah, let's go for a ride. But I think the one great thing about this battery is you can upgrade it. So you can get a larger battery capacity, and I'm starting to look at even larger ones, so having different battery options.
Fantastic. How much are replacement batteries? Do you sell those?
It's $6.99 Canadian, so what's that, about 500 US?
That's super affordable, and I think part of it's because they've externalized that controller unit. That would be my guess, because some batteries seem to have the controller and the battery combined. I think Bosch is like that, and they're like $1,000 for one of those, US.
Yeah.
Pretty expensive. So that's nice to know, especially for that capacity. And if you had like an Amigo bike, I think there are some other brands that also use the same battery style.
Yeah.
They're interchangeable.
It's the same battery, same display, very similar components, so it makes it really easy for us to service, maintain these bikes.
Well, we haven't really talked about powering the bike on. What do we just press the M button here for a couple seconds? It boots right up. 26-inch wheels, 400. So it was giving us some feedback about what's going on here. And then this looks like, six bars on that battery. For a minute, I thought it was 5, but that's a little bit more. So finer increments, a little bit more feedback. It boots up on assist level 1, but you can take it down to 0. But the throttle is active. I'm not going to hit it. Don't worry. Really, she's going to go flying, run over my feet here. We've got speed. It's in kilometers per hour right now because we're in Canada. If we press the M button, we go from like just a bunch of different readouts. Trip time down there, trip distance, max speed. There we go. All kinds of stuff by pressing the M. And then we can plus. One of the things I really like about this is if you press plus, you go through the different levels of assist, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 0. So it circles back around. I really like that because it's like way fewer button presses. Some of them you hit 6 or 5 or whatever, and you're just stuck there. So this one's pretty nice that way. We do have walk mode. Can I see if it works in assist level 0?
Sure.
Okay, it might like give you a little bit of a. No, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Sorry.
So it does work. You didn't. I should have been more clear. I was like, it's going to take off on you. So there we go. Assist level 0. A walk mode works even then. That's cool. And then there's backlighting. So if I hold the plus button for a second, boop, it did get brighter. I can see that. You guys can't see it probably. And then I think if you hold the plus and the minus, it goes into the settings, right?
Yes.
And that's where you can change from miles per hour to kilometers per hour. You can even raise and lower the top speed. And I think this can kind of become like an off-road, 25 mile per hour, maybe up to 40 kilometer per hour type of a bike.
Yeah, class 3.
Class 3, which is nice. It makes it a little bit more versatile. In certain areas, though, the legality might be a question mark, so it's nice that you can very easily remove the throttle if you're a class 3 in the city. If you're off-road and you're doing the throttle and going a little bit faster.
Oh, the throttle's still set to 32.
Oh, so the throttle's only, okay, good to know. So the throttle has that speed limit, but some places, it's nice that you can adjust all that stuff. So I think that's a pretty good go. And maybe I'll hop on the other bike and we'll just do a little ride. And I'm gonna take it down to 0, just like we talked about. So right now I'm pedaling this thing just like a normal bike. And it's not too bad. And the cool thing is, with so many gears, with such a big range, you actually can pedal this fairly effectively. But then as soon as you need that extra help, you just ease into the throttle. Awesome. And right now we're in assist level 0, but I think I'm getting like full throttle power. So I'm gonna double check that. I just hit minus. Oh, no, interesting. So it can't circle around with the minus key, only with the plus key. Okay, interesting. Good thing we're checking all the different scenarios. There we go. So there's the highest level of assist. I'm gonna try the throttle again and see if it's just as fast or not. There we go. Yep, feels about the same. So I think you get full throttle power regardless of the level of assist that you're in, which is nice. It's kind of like open. Oh boy, just went through some mud. That's what these tires are made for. No problem climbing up this little hill. Feeling pretty comfortable even over these pavers, sort of uneven terrain. I'm trying to give this like a fairly thorough off-road test. It is a little bit bumpy just because it doesn't have that suspension, but it's a fairly decent trade-off for the weight savings, I think, and the cost savings. Still looking pretty good. And then the, like I said before, it's nice to get their feedback, but I welcome feedback from real-world customers too, because see, we got some mud and stuff down there. The sealed cadence sensor looks like it's doing pretty well, and I haven't heard too many complaints about the controller being right there, but it is a little bit more exposed. So there we go. I'm gonna hop back on this thing and do some riding with the crew. Let me just go through this carefully. Hey guys, yeah, heads up for the water. Oh yeah. I'm gonna chase her down. Good job.
Throttle's great.
Yeah. We don't want to rip up the terrain too much, but these fat tires seem to hold up a little bit better. This is great. Fun. So I know a lot of people get these fat bikes just because they like the style. Even if you're riding on the road, you do get a little bit more buzzing, but they seem to work pretty well. You can hop off the trail for a second. Oh boy. So there's a little bit of surge there. Just moving those pedals, you get a little bit of a start and stop occasionally, but having that override, just keep in mind that it's only on the left side, and that's kind of your safety if you need to stop. Okay guys, we have Shimano Acera derailleur in the rear, 11 to 32 tooth cassette, 8 speeds. That's pretty good all on its own. I see a lot of e-bikes that just have that. Well, in this case, we also have 28, 38, and 48 tooth chain rings. These are all steel, so they're a little bit a little bit more durable than like aluminum alloy. It adds a bit of weight, but that's fine. And as I was saying, that front derailleur acts as a guide. So hopefully you're not going to have the chain flopping off. You're not going to lose the chain as easily. I like that they have a slap guard, 170 millimeter crank arms, pretty standard. It's a good setup. In some ways, there's extra complexity and like weight from having multiple chain rings. And with an e-bike, it's like, you know, a lot of companies are going with one-by drivetrains, which means a single chain ring and then like a big cassette. Maybe it's like 11 of 42 instead of, 32. But for something like this, that's, it doesn't have big suspension and it's pretty like sleek in a lot of ways. You might actually want to pedal it unpowered. So having those extra gears is not a terrible thing. It works and it's decent hardware. They went with Acera again instead of like Tourney or Altus, which is sort of the lower levels. So just wanted to point that out. We've got the 12 magnet sealed cadence sensor on the left side of the bottom bracket there, and then we've got the motor in the rear, 500 watt, 80 newton meter peak torque. I'm going to pedal around and just give you some idea of how responsive it is. So I'm in the highest level of assist, so it'll be the most pronounced. This is as loud as the motor will ever be for you. And I'm going to start out on the street, because that way you won't hear the noise of the grass and stuff. It's only pedal assist. Oh boy, bumped that out of place, didn't I? I'm actually really impressed with how quiet the motor is. And that might come back to the controller being like pure sine wave and everything. It's quiet. The tires, you get a little bit more of that kind of the knobby noise when you're on concrete, but the bike's it's doing pretty well. This time I'm gonna use the throttle and go off-road a little bit. That was a good ride. I think we did a little bit of mudding.
You can't put fenders.
I shouldn't be rude or anything. I've definitely got a little bit of mud on the pants, so we had a really good time here. I think that's about it. That's the NCM Aspen. Is there anything else you have to add? You feel like we didn't cover? Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun to talk with these friends from shops and stuff and get that perspective and go on a little adventure. So I hope you guys had fun too. Have fun out there. I love ya. Ride safe. We'll see you next time.